Hope everyone is doing well. Welcome. Thanks everybody for being here. We're going to get started in just a minute. Today I'll be speaking in English, but I promise to speak clearly and at a good tempo so that everyone can understand. Thanks everybody for joining. I'm very excited to get going. We'll start in just a minute. My name's, as you, if you were in our session yesterday, you met me, but for those of you who are joining new today, my name's Colin Andrews, and I am the educational advisor at Fulbright Columbia. Thanks again, everybody, for being here. I'm really excited to get started in just 1 minute. Once we get everybody from the waiting room to enter. Great, welcome everybody. Thanks for being here on time, punctual. I'm excited to get started. Looks like we have people tuning in today from home or people tuning in today from their cars. So I wish you, I thank you from wherever you're at for being here. And yeah, just a reminder, in this webinar or in this workshop, you have your microphones disabled. However, you can ask questions through the chat function at any point during the presentation. And my friend and colleague, Alexi Sanchez, will be monitoring the questions. And at the end of the session, I'll be answering some questions. And this workshop is also recorded, so you'll be able to watch it later on our YouTube channel. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thanks again, everyone, for being here. Once again, my name is Colin Andrews, and I'm the academic advisor at Fulbright Columbia. Today is our second workshop in a series of workshops about the application requirements to apply to a Fulbright Graduate Studies Scholarship with Fulbright Columbia. The topic of today is how to certify your English and the GRE exam. So we're essentially talking about two exams today, English exams and the GRE. Okay, on the agenda for today, I'll be first talking about the English exams that are required for all scholarships. And I'll discuss the structure of the exams. I'll discuss the differences between the exams. Then I'll turn to the GRE. And I'll talk about the GRE for doctoral studies a little bit. Finally, I will talk about strategies and tools for studying briefly and sending your results to Fulbright. The idea of this workshop is not to tutor you on taking the exams, on the specific questions. Although I will talk about how the test is structured, I'm not going to talk too much about how to solve the problems. Rather, today, I'm going to tell you about what's required for Fulbright, the differences in the exams, the different ways you can take the exams. And then at the end, I'm going to be giving you a ton of resources so that you can plan your studies and have successful studies using all these resources. So that is the gist of today. We're going to do another polling session today, or votación. And I just want to hear from you, from every one of you, which of the following abilities tested on the English exams is the most challenging for you. So I'm going to go ahead and start the poll. Think about it for a second. Go ahead and respond. Great. Super. Thanks for your participation, everybody. It's super awesome. Okay, if you haven't voted yet, I'll give you a couple more seconds to vote. And I'm going to go ahead and publish the results. All right, looks like writing is the most difficult. I believe you all can see this right now, but we had 37% say that writing was the most difficult or is the most difficult for them. Followed by speaking. So this makes a lot of sense, right? The productive sections are always the most difficult. Reading and listening, the inductive, are usually easier for people. So that's great. Exactly as I expected, and thanks for participating. So we're going to start by talking about the English exams. And I think that this is a super important topic because this covers, I mean, preparing for your English exams for applying to the Fulbright. If you're thinking about doing doctoral studies or applying to a scholarship for doctoral studies, when you study for your English exams, you're also studying for the verbal section of the GRE. So it's kind of a 2-for-1, and that's why I have this first. Okay, so let's see. What exams are required, or what exams rather are accepted for an application for the Fulbright program? We will accept any one of the following: the Toefl IBT, the Toefl ITP, or the IELTS academic. Just in case there's any confusion, you don't have to take all 3 of these. I have had questions of, do I have to take all 3? No, just one of these exams, and you can apply to a Fulbright scholarship. Okay, and so we do require a minimum score for you to be eligible for the Fulbright scholarship. And these scores are at a level B2 on the Common European Language Framework. They're equivalent to B2, even though it's kind of like comparing apples to oranges. But this is the, where people say the relationship's at. On the Toefl IBT, we ask for a minimum score of 80 for the to apply to the scholarships. On the Toefl ITP, we ask for a minimum score of 567, and on the IELTS academic, 6.5. And if you're interested in applying for the Beca para Comunidades Indígenas, note that the minimums are different. But let me, some people might ask, why does the Fulbright Commission ask for minimums? And the answer is essentially this: they're scholarships to study at the graduate level in the United States, which means that this is the minimum level of English necessary to be able to succeed in that environment. And it really is, and I think that even for many people who complete these minimums, still entering the classroom at the master's level or the PhD or the doctoral level in the United States is going to be challenging, primarily because of the language component. So it's a good thing that we ask for these minimums, even though they are challenging. Okay, let's do a little comparison of the different exams that we accept. We have the TOEFL ITP, the TOEFL IBT, and the IELTS academic. Because of the pandemic, they're all available in digital format. Traditionally, the TOEFL ITP is a paper-based test, but because of the pandemic, every single one of these exams you can take from the convenience of your house, and you take them on the computer. So that's, I think, kind of one of the gifts that the pandemic has brought us. Little gift that we can take these tests at home. We don't have to go to a testing center and all of the nervousness that that brings. So I think it's a great option, even though, and I'll talk about this in just a minute, there are still testing centers available for the TOEFL IBT. If you're interested, you can sign up. And there's not a lot of availability, but they do exist. So both the TOEFL IBT and the IELTS academic test for 4 different abilities, English abilities: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. So both the inductive and the productive language abilities. The TOEFL ITP tests for only 3, which are listening, reading, and written expression. There's no speaking section in the TOEFL ITP. You can see here that they have different scores, different scoring systems. For both the TOEFL ITP and the TOEFL IBT, your scores are cumulative, so that means they're added up on top of each other to make an ultimate score. And for the IELTS, it's a band score, meaning on each section, you get a score, and then they take the average of that section. And I'm telling everyone a lot of details about the structure of the exam, but these are really important details to be completely familiar with so that you can have the most success on the exam, so that you don't have to think about these. You're so familiar with the components of the scoring and the structure that it's a part that you don't have to dedicate your brain energy to while you're taking the exam. So the time it takes to take each exam is important to note also. The TOEFL ITP takes about 2 hours to take from the beginning to the end. The TOEFL IBT, 4 hours, and the IELTS academic exam, 2 hours and 45 minutes. You can see here the cost differs as well. The cheapest of the 3 is the TOEFL ITP. It's actually, an option that's structured to be cheaper so that it can be more accessible to people around the world in different economic situations. So that's a great thing about the TOEFL ITP. And you can see that they all take around the same amount of time to, the scores have to be sent to your institutions. And they all take about the same amount of time to be sent. The IELTS is a little bit faster to send the scores, the computer scores, but you should allow about 10 days, 10 days for your TOEFL and for your TOEFL ITP or your TOEFL IBT scores to arrive at your institution. So what does that mean? The Convocatoria, the call for applications for the Fulbright postgraduate scholarships, are open until May 14th, right? So you have to make sure that you've taken your test at the latest, at the very latest, May 4th. But that would be cutting it super close. So I recommend that you register and take the exam sooner than later so that you have time to evaluate your scores, and maybe if necessary, take the exam again. All of these exams are accepted by Fulbright, as I've said. The thing to note here is that most US universities don't accept the TOEFL ITP. They accept almost all universities except the Toefl IBT and the IELTS, but not many except the Toefl ITP. And so while the cost is an advantage, if you want to use your scores to apply to US universities as well, the recommendation is the Toefl IBT or IELTS. Okay, great. So everybody with me so far? Are you following? It's going to be a lot of information today, but I hope it's all very useful in your preparation for the exams. What do these English exams test for? So the idea of these exams is to measure a specific type of English, not just your general English, but your academic English, your English for studying at the university level, right? So that's what you have to keep in mind. A lot of the topics that you'll engage with are going to be topics related to universities in the United States. So maybe a question in the speaking section will be about universities, or, you know, what you listen to in the listening section will be a conversation between two students at the university. So that's an important thing to mention. In the reading section, basically the reading section tests for how well you can understand the type of material you might encounter at a US university. So this is like university level textbooks. Listening, how well you can understand and comprehend conversations and lectures in English. Note here, and this is, I think, difficult for many people, and I'm sure it would be very difficult for me in Spanish, because there are different accents. So you might encounter an English accent, you might encounter an Irish accent, a South African English accent, although hopefully not that one. And so you have to be prepared for maybe some differences in accents. I know that if I was in a Spanish test and I heard people costeñas, I would be in a lot of trouble, but just so you know, that's something to prepare for. Writing, designed, so this is how well you can write in an academic way in English, if you can present ideas clearly, well organized with correct grammar. And speaking, how well you can speak in real life situations, both formal academic situations, but also kind of like what might happen outside of the classroom in a university experience. Okay, so those are the sections, those are general descriptions of the sections. What's important to do when you study for this exam is understand, obviously you can work on your English vocabulary, you can build your skills, you can read, you can write, but even more fundamental to that is understanding the structure of the test. Many people already have the ability, but what they need is to understand how to play the game. And so that's very important, that's key. And if you look, the way you learn how to play the game is by understanding the types of questions asked. So here we have all of the different types of questions asked on the Toefl IBT. And whatever test you do will have similar questions to this, but you need to investigate and see what the specific questions are, the specific question types. But for example, and I don't have time today to go into all of these in detail, but you can see for reading, there are factual and negative factual questions. So what does that mean? In the text, you're going to be reading a section of a textbook, and then it's going to ask you a question about whether something is true or false from the text. So you have to show that you understood the information in the text. Vocabulary questions, this is basically like understanding what words you can substitute in a sentence, or if there's a blank word in a sentence, what word would fit into the sentence. This is better said as word and context. So not so much synonyms, but what word fits the context best, right? Those are different things. Because if somebody looks at the word and they just think of the first synonym, they might choose the wrong answer. But if you think, what is the context of the sentence and what is the best option for this, then that's the way to answer these types of vocabulary questions. A lot of questions will be sentence simplification. So this is really important in a lot of tests with English, is looking for redundant information. When people say in one sentence, when people are saying the same thing twice, right? So sentence simplification is looking for redundant information. Insert texts, this is like looking at a paragraph and understanding where a sentence might go most logically in a paragraph. And prose summary, this is understanding the overall idea of the passage that you just read. Okay, so that's reading, right? Those are the question types that it's very key to become familiar with these question types and know how to answer them so that you can answer them quickly and correctly on the test. Next, we have listening. Let me talk a little bit about these different types of questions in listening. We have just content and just purpose. So gist means, what's it about? What's the gist? It's an expression in English. Gist means what is the idea? And so just content is what is the main point of the audio that you listen to, and just purpose is what is the function, or what is the motivation or the object of the audio. Detail and function, this means more like, what does he mean when he says, or what does she mean when she says blank? It's looking for the meaning underneath the words a little bit. Attitude questions, this is reading between the lines and inferring, right? Looking for what the attitude of the speaker might be. And connecting content, this is basically about also reading between the lines, being able to make connections between how two speakers are interacting, for example. Okay, writing, the writing section and the speaking section, the two productive English skills have the same two types of questions, integrated and independent. And these are really easy to understand. Basically, an integrated question means you're responding to content. So that means you will have to read something, maybe listen to something, but you analyze content and then you write about it or you speak about it, right? So integrated speaking, you'll read a passage, then listen to a conversation, then you'll have 30 seconds to prepare what you're going to say, and you'll have 1 minute to speak, to analyze the topic or to present your opinion. Independent means that you are given very little content and you basically have to make you're speaking without content to analyze. So for example, in the speaking section for independent question, you're given a short question like about your preference. What's your preference, breakfast or lunch? and then you have to answer the question. You're giving 15 seconds to plan, and then you have 45 seconds to speak. So these are really fast responses. But independent means that you're not responding to much content, and integrated means you're responding to a lot of content. So get familiar with the question types, learn them, practice them, and that will help you tremendously in your scores. Okay, so in-person exams, let's talk about registering for the exams a little bit. There are still in-person exams available for the Toefl IBT. If you get on the ETS website, which I have in the resources, the links for everybody, for every single test that I talk about today. But in that link on the website for the Toefl, they have an option for registration for test centers and test dates. And you can see if there's a center close to you offering an in-person exam. I think there's one or two centers in the Bogota area and a couple in the bigger cities in Colombia at the moment, but there's not very many exams being offered for in-person at the moment. Additionally, I wouldn't recommend it because the at-home exams are very convenient. You take the test from home, you use your own equipment, you're monitored by a human on the other end of your camera, and you don't have to risk leaving your house, exposing yourself, being in a testing center. I think for a lot of us, we're more comfortable and at ease in our house. Although there are some things to point out. You can't be too comfortable. But there's instructions to register in the handout. Okay, this is what I mean when I say you can't be too comfortable. You need to make sure that you are well-dressed because your photo will be included on your exam. A photo of you on the test day that's taken through your webcam. And so don't come in your pajamas, brush your hair a little bit, and just be ready for that. But some tips for the home edition, because a lot of people will be taking it this way. You can, on the websites, you can verify your system, your computer that you're using, and the technical requirements to take the exams. It's very important that you go over these requirements carefully because they're quite specific. You need to be alone and in a closed room. So that means you can't be in a public place. You need to be alone in a closed room with a empty desk. Your computer should be on an empty desk, and you need to use a standard chair. You can't use these new modern egg chairs. You can't be on a hammock. You need to be on a standard chair. And you also can't cover your head with any kind of hat or your ears with any kind of accessories. These are all sort of measures to make sure that the exams are fair and that your results, the results that you take honestly, are not undermined by other people who don't take the exam honestly. You also need to have your ID with you. You need to have a mirror or your cell phone handy because you have to show the person on the other end of the camera the room, and you can't be late. I think that if you're late, they cancel your exam and you lose your spot. The other key thing is that you can't have traditional paper and pen to practice your answers or to plan your answers. Instead, you can have a small whiteboard, a dry erase marker, or a transparent sheet protector that works like a whiteboard, and you put a white sheet inside of it so that you can see what you're writing, just like this. Great. So those are some of the requirements for taking the test at home. But make sure that each test has different requirements and you read what the requirements are closely. Okay, for you guys, I have put together a really amazing resource bank. A resource bank or a study bank means one place that is full of tons and tons of resources that you can choose from. First, you'll see there's like a registration link for the different exams. There are links to paid study courses and material. These are excellent materials if you wish to pay for them. And there's also excellent free study materials. I've put together some ideas of how you can study in the next slide, but if you look here, edX has an online free course, which is a massive open online course, a MOOC course that's excellent for studying for the Toefl. The company that makes the Toefl, ETS, has they want people who take the exam to succeed. So they have tons of free material available, such as a mobile app where you can practice Toefl. And they also have a free study planner, which to me looks amazing, where you can plan your entire study plan. And it also has links for resources embedded in the study plan. So right at the week where you want to be working on this, you can click on the link and it will take you to the material. And this is a test guide resource bank, a resource bank within a resource bank that has lots of free practice tests, PDF guidebooks, overview information, flashcards. It's got a million different things. But let me talk to you a little bit about how you can study in a casero way or a homemade way. I have the links to all of these resources in a handout, but I believe that studying with the test material helps a lot. It helps a lot, but also sometimes you need a break. Sometimes you need to change it up a little bit. And so what I recommend when you change the material and you're still working on listening, but you are taking a break from the test book, that you listen to podcasts. I'm suggesting This American Life and The Daily as two excellent podcasts. There's also this website called ed.ted.com, which is a TED Talk website, which I think TED Talks can be amazing for giving you inspiration for your essays, for your study and research objectives essays and your personal statement essays. That kind of language that they use, the ideas that they have for impact can be really great. So you can listen to those videos and then respond to questions to see how well you're understanding. Obviously, you can read the news in English, and you can complete weekly news questionnaires to see if you're understanding a lot of the news. You can, I think that this is great. You can speak. You can give yourself, for the speaking section, you can give yourself a topic. For instance, what did you do yesterday? You give yourself 15 seconds to think about it, and then you answer it for 45 seconds, right? Just like on this independent speaking section. You can also bother your friends who speak English very well, and you can leave them a voice note on WhatsApp that's 45 seconds long of you practicing your English, answering a prompt. So those are some speaking recommendations. And then writing, the New York Times Learning Network has perfect writing assignments that you can complete for working on improving your writing. You basically read a short article and then they give you a prompt to respond to, which is just like the integrated writing section. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about the GRE for just a minute. The GRE stands for the Graduate Record Examination, which is a requirement for applying to many graduate schools in the United States. However, in this last year, because of the pandemic, a lot of graduate schools have waived the GRE because of accessibility issues. But we're still waiting to see how many of them will waive it for this year. The point is that for international students, when they don't really know the kind of educational background that you came from, if you can apply with a strong GRE, even if the university doesn't require the GRE, but if you still have a strong GRE score, that can ensure the university that you have strong academic abilities. Because they might look at your pregrado and say, oh, this university, who knows what it's like in Colombia, because they don't know. But with these entrance exams, you can ensure the university of your academic ability. So that's why to apply to a Fulbright scholarship directed at doctoral studies, the GRE is a requirement. Note that it's not a requirement for the master's level, but it is for the doctoral level. It's a 190-minute test of 80 questions and 2 essays. And those questions are divided into these sections. We have a verbal reasoning section. This section, as I said, when you study for the Toefl, you're also studying for this. It's a 2-for-1. It's a 2-for-1. And there's 2 sections with 20 questions each, and you have 30 minutes per section. The types of questions that they ask are sentence equivalence. Sentence equivalence is basically, there's going to be in a sentence 2 words missing, and you have to look for the answer, which is 2 words that fit the sentence and help it make sense. So very similar to what you do in the Toefl. There's text completion. Text completion is basically 1 to 5 sentences with missing blanks, and you have to figure out where to insert the text into the missing blank. And then sentence equivalence, reading comprehension is basically, did you understand the main point of the passage, of the reading passage? Did you understand what the author was trying to argue? Quantitative reasoning is the math section, right? This is mathematicas here. It's 2 sections, 20 questions per section for 35 minutes. There are 3 different types of questions you'll find. Quantitative comparison is basically looking at 2 numerical values that might be expressed in different ways, be it through equations or whatever, and figuring out what is the relationship of the values. If one value is greater than the other, if they're equal, or if you can't determine which one is greater. So that's quantitative comparison. Numeric entry is solving a problem and entering the exact result. And multiple choice obviously gives you a problem and then you can select, but you should note that in some multiple choice questions, you can only select one answer. In other multiple choice questions, you can select many correct answers. So be aware of that dynamic. Finally, analytical writing. This is one section with 2 tasks for 30 minutes, in which one of the tasks you have to analyze a text. You have to analyze an author's arguments. Are they persuasive? Why are they persuasive? What are they arguing? And then you analyze that's analyze an argument and analyze a text. So analyze an argument is analyzing persuasiveness. Analyze a text is looking at the structure and the main idea of a text that might not be an argument. Okay. Just like the TOEFL, for this exam, you need to practice a lot, dedicate a consistent amount of time to studying. It's better to study in short periods of time over a long period than to study 1 week before the exam for 8 hours a day. So give yourself a little bit of time each day to practice and to study. Always focus on your growth areas. What does that mean? When you take a practice test, you'll see which scores are high and which ones are low. The low scores are your growth areas. That's the place you have the most to grow and earn points on the GRE or the TOEFL, the place where you have the most to grow. Always have a study plan that you're following, so you're tackling different sections. Take practice tests as much as possible. I recommend 1 a week to see how you're progressing and so that you're familiar with the structure. And always make sure that you're practicing in less than the allotted time. So what does that mean? All of these tests have a time limit, but for the GRE, you have average 1 minute, 45 seconds for the verbal reasoning. That means you need to be answering the question in under that amount of time. Same for qualitative reasoning, the math, 1 minute, 50 seconds. It's about the same. And what I recommend people do is that they set a timer and they do questions under that amount of time and they push themselves with the time limit and they go faster and faster. But then they alternate that strategy with an untimed section, with an untimed test where you take as long as you want, but you have to get complete accuracy. That means you have to get every question correct as best as you can, right? So alternate between very fast and taking some time where you can answer the questions with high accuracy. And eventually those 2 strategies will begin to reinforce one another. And again, in the same document, I have the GRE study bank with lots of links to the different sections. Okay, I pretty much talked about all this and we're getting late on time, so I'm going to go ahead and skip this. That's just, again, the same overview of how to prepare. You can take a course with a tutor or with a study group, do lots of practice exams, do online classes. In the Fulbright website, we sell the official guide to the GRE, and we also sell the official guide to the TOEFL IBT. They both have a price of 150,000 pesos, more or less. And that includes the shipping. Okay, so we're getting late on time, but you need to make sure that you send your exams to the that you include your exams with your application. Fulbright won't accept any exams sent directly to us physically or emailed to us in any way. That's not how you submit your exam. Rather, on the webpage for the Toefl, IBT, and for the GRE, you're going to use a specific code during the registration, or in the case of the GRE, on the test date, to link your scores with the Fulbright Commission. Then in the LostPow platform where you make your application, you're going to put in the necessary information like your appointment number or registration number. And all of this information is in our terms of reference. For the Toefl ITP, you don't have to register with any number, but make sure that you write your complete name, the date on which you took the exam, and that you select the option for Toefl ITP. It's important that that you also leave the appointment number and registration blank. For the IELTS, you're going to get a test report form number, which you'll put into the LostPow platform. And this is what it looks like on the Toefl IBT. When you put in the institution code, you'll hit search, and then it will pull up the Fulbright Commission. For the GRE, it's the same code, but you put it in on the day of the exam, when you take the exam. If you don't, you have to pay for the sending of the exam. So I recommend, to save your money, you enter the Fulbright code on the day that you take the exam. Then in LostPow, you follow the same instructions with the appointment number, and you connect so that Fulbright is connected to your exam results. And this is just reminding you that you cannot send physical or digital copies to the commission. They have to be sent in the official way. And if your results are not available at the closing of the Convocatoria, May 14th, then your application will not be considered for the program you're applying to. All information that you need is in the términos de referencia of your scholarship. Okay, so we're here closing. I'm going to share this link in the chat with everybody so that you have it. If you were in the class, the first taller for the essays, I tried to share a Google Classroom, but it didn't work. So this time I'm going to be sharing a folder with this bit.ly code, which is Recursos Talleres Commission Fulbright Columbia, CFSA. And I have the whole resource bank and an exam study plan that I made for you. I'll be taking your questions now that you might have. And while I do, all of us at the Commission Fulbright would really appreciate if you fill out our Formulario de Asistencia a Eventos con Fulbright. Alexis will be helping me paste that link in the chat. And yeah, fill that out. Give me some feedback on today's workshop. I hope it was very useful. And right now I'll be sharing the link. In the chat with everybody. And that is the link to the resources for today and also from the workshop from yesterday. I think all of these resources are going to be super useful for you. So enjoy them. And yeah, thanks everybody for being here. I'm gonna go ahead and share the screen again really quick, just while Alexis asks me questions, the kind of frequent questions that came up. And in the meantime, I'll remind you that you can follow us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. This video will be on YouTube at Fulbright Columbia. You can visit our website, www.fulbright.ed.co. Or you can write me if you have any extraordinary questions at consejeria@fulbright.edu.co. All right.
Yes, thank you, Colin, for your presentation. Okay, some questions. Okay, one question say that, could you explain what is the purpose of the Toefl ITP? There are advantages, there are any difference, or what is the difference between Toefl IBT?
Perfect. In summary, the Toefl IBT is more economically accessible. It's cheaper. The Toefl IBT, sorry, the Toefl ITP is cheaper. It's more economically accessible. The Toefl ITP is 3 sections: reading, writing, and listening. The Toefl ITP does not have speaking. The Toefl, we accept the Toefl ITP, but most universities don't accept the Toefl ITP. So it's a cheaper exam. It has less sections. You can apply to Fulbright with it, and it's a great idea to do so, because if you're selected to the scholarship, you also get a free voucher to take the Toefl IBT to apply to universities. So my recommendation is go with the cheapest option, and then you'll get a free second chance to take the IBT before you apply to universities.
Okay, other questions. Otra pregunta, bueno, esto está en español, es si existe alguna o tienes ejemplos de algunas plataformas en donde se puedan practicar estas habilidades de los diferentes exámenes.
Perfect. Yes, the resource bank is full of those of platforms, a mobile app, different practice tests. This resource bank has it all, both free and paid. But I really recommend that you look through it and find what resources you like the most, what's working for you. There's great things. I love the online course that's free. I think it's great. And I don't think I mentioned this, but it's important. I need to go back to the GRE really quick and say that Toefl, for the Toefl, we have a minimum scores. We have minimum scores, remember, to apply. For the GRE, there's no minimum, but you should try to have a competitive score, right? So anybody who's taken the GRE, they're good to apply. But try for a competitive score so your application is more competitive. What's a competitive score? Around 300 points on the GRE.
Thank you. Ok. Habían varias preguntas sobre si puedes explicar un poco sobre las plataformas en las que se presentan los exámenes. Las plataformas, sobre todo los exámenes home test.
It's a great question. For the Toefl, it's a little complicated because lo voy a explicar en español. Con el Toefl IBT, la plataforma no es gestionado por ETS, por la compañía que gestionan Toefl. es gestionado, la plataforma en que presentes el examen está gestionado por ProctorU, que es otra compañía. Entonces tienes que estar ojo con eso porque tienes que crear dos cuentas, uno con ETS y otro con ProctorU para poder presentar el examen. Las plataformas son bastante intuitivo, sin embargo, deberían practicar si pueden a través de su computadora en una prueba, como un examen prueba que está en la página de ETS, en donde puedes ver cómo hacer un simulacro de cómo sería el examen actual en línea, ¿no? Como para muchos somos muy acostumbrados a presentar exámenes en papel, pero para eso es diferente y es de suma importancia saber cómo presentarlo, cómo es para estar en la plataforma y contestar preguntas ahí, cómo seguir a las próximas preguntas, cómo marcar las preguntas para revisar. Hay mucha estrategia en eso y es importante practicar en línea. Listo, Alexis.
Ok. Eh, Dicen que si ya presentó el TOEFL IBT hace unos meses o un año, uno que sí pueden aplicar con este examen y otro que si puedes explicar un poco el proceso de si ya se presentó la IBT, cómo pueden enviar el examen a través de la plataforma de ETS.
Listo. Si has presentado el TOEFL IBT o el GRE, tienes que acceder a su cuenta de ETS y enviar y pagar para enviar sus resultados a la comisión Fulbright. Como dije, puedes enviar sus resultados gratis al momento de registrar o al momento de presentar el examen, pero si ya lo presentaste hace mucho tiempo, tienes que pagar para enviar o vincular sus exámenes con su aplicación con Fulbright. Recuerden que el TOEFL, que todos los exámenes de inglés tienen 2 años de vigencia y el GRE tiene 4 años de vigencia. Es muy importante ver en nuestros términos de referencia las fechas en que exigimos que has presentado los exámenes.
Sí, ahí para ayudarte, Colin, los exámenes deben ser presentados desde el del 14 de mayo de 2019 en adelante.
Los
Pueden
exámenes de
presentar
inglés.
de inglés, sí.
Listo.
Y de GRE puede estar presentado 1 de enero de 2016, si no estoy mal.
Ajá.
En los términos de referencia está estas fechas exactas.
Listo, muchas gracias.
Hay una pregunta que están haciendo mucho y es que si está habilitada la opción de presentar TOEFL ITP de manera presencial con Fulbright.
No, no, en este momento Fulbright no tenemos como, no estamos ofreciendo exámenes de TOEFL ITP presenciales. Sin embargo, nuestro como opción de presentar nuestra opción de TOEFL ITP at home está muy buena, funciona para muchas personas y puedes ver todos los requisitos para presentarlo en línea. También es muy importante, olvidé mencionar, pero para los exámenes hay adaptaciones para gente en condiciones de discapacidad. Y puedes acceder a las plataformas para aprender más de cuáles son las adaptaciones específicas que ofrecen que coinciden con su condición o con Sí, exactamente. Entonces, siempre como estar vigente de eso.
Ok, hay unas preguntas sobre GRE que is GRE really hard? Do you need a broad math knowledge to present it?
I think that I think that anybody can prepare for these exams and do a good job. The important thing is not the knowledge, not how much knowledge you already have of the math section or the verbal section, but it's knowing how to play the game. Super important. You have to learn how to play the game. And so practice the different types of questions, practice with the time limits. Those are all good options. And yeah, just dedicate to practicing. Remember, I didn't mention this, but on the quantitative reasoning section, the mathematics section of the GRE, you can use a calculator. So you don't have to be a number crunching wizard. You can use your calculator and know the strategies for answering the questions. Alexis?
Otra pregunta es que si hay alguna diferencia en que presenten un examen u otro para el tema de selección en las programas.
No, todos los exámenes tienen la misma, o sea, tienen diferentes sistemas de puntaje, pero todos los exámenes tienen la misma valor en el proceso de revisión y el proceso de selección. Entonces, sí, ningún examen, los resultados de ningún examen es mejor que otros. Y pues quiero recordar a todos que en el chat tenemos nuestro formulario de asistencia. Por favor, completarla. Estamos muy agradecidos por todos que están aquí hoy. Espero que esta sesión estuvo muy útil para ustedes. Espero que están listos para prepararse, para presentar el examen. No olviden registrarse muy pronto. Y en nuestra página web pueden acceder a toda la información de Toefl ITP. Y en el link que envié tenemos tienen todos los recursos de este taller y el taller del martes, lo de los ensayos. Entonces, Alexis, estamos a tiempo. ¿Quieres que contesto algunas más preguntas o terminamos aquí?
Bueno, sí, yo creo que no alcanzamos a contestar todas las preguntas, pero si tienen más preguntas, recuerden que pueden escribirnos a consejería@fulbright.edu.co. Ahí Colin va a estar respondiendo pues las preguntas que tengan. Recomendamos enviar en un solo correo la mayor cantidad de preguntas que tengan para poder hacer más fácil la respuesta. Y pues muchas gracias por su asistencia.
Thank you everybody for being here. I hope that you that it was useful, as I said, and I wish you the best in your preparation for applying to our programs. Remember that to apply for a Fulbright Scholarship, it's not a sprint. It's not a 100-yard dash. It's a marathon. So be giving yourself lots of time, start early, dedicate a lot of time and energy to this, and best of luck. Thank you, everybody.